Hello, this is Craig Hall with the Ledger podcast for Saturday. This is September 17th, 2022. Again, I'm Craig Hall, Ledger publisher, paper delivery person, and much more. We're going solo today as my cohort, Chloe Morris, the world's most awesome 9-year-old, is at her mother's for the weekend. If you need any assistance Ledger-wise, please feel free to text Ledger at 918-626-1215. If you want to get our daily update and breaking news alerts, text Ledger to 844-673-0508. This is the 260th day of the year. There are only 105 days left in 2022. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Ledger at heavenerledger.com. Today's Bible verse: Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Let the one who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of the Lord and rely on their God. It comes from Isaiah chapter 50, verse 10. We will stream today's home softball game with Tishomingo and the Wolf Pup game starting at 5 p.m. And on the LeFlore County scoreboard from yesterday, in football, Poto defeated Chandler 30-21, Panama 41, Wilburton 20, Muldrow 34, Spiro 7, Mena 34, Pecola 34, Wetumpka 34, Arcoma 0. Fast pitch softball, Kiowa 13, Cameron 5, Buffalo Valley 9, Cameron 0, Panama 7, Hulbert 6, and Whitesboro 2, Ripley 1. In fall baseball, Howe 5, Cameron 4, Stonewall 8, LeFlore 7, Worcester 13, Wright City 3. LeFlore County football teams went 2-3 in Week 3 games Friday night, and the final tune-ups for all the county teams other than Arcoma. Heavener had a bye and visits Valiant to start district play next week. Poto bounced back from last week's loss to Metro Christian, building a big lead in the first half and holding off Chandler in the second half for a 30-21 win. The Pirates are 2-1 and start district play next week at home against Fort Gibson. Chandler is 2-1 and visits Kellyville. Panama got its first win by whipping Wilburton 41-20 in the Razorbacks' last non-district contest. Daniel Bledsoe scored 3 touchdowns for Panama, including a fumble recovery in the end zone, and Tyler Simpkins added a pair of touchdowns in the win. The Razorbacks are at Porter next week. Wilburton is 0-3 and goes to Antlers. In the best game of the evening, Mena improved to 3-1 by holding on to defeat Pecola 35-34. The Indians are 2-2 and go to Canadian in their district opener next week. Mena is 3-1, plays at Arkadelphia next week. Spiro's perfect start to the season ended Friday night as Muldrow took a 34-7 win in the Battle of the Bulldogs. Spiro is 2-1 and hosts Eufaula next week. Muldrow is 3-0 and goes to Shakota. In today's weather forecast, we'll have clear skies and near record highs in LeFlore County. The high will be 93 degrees, only 1 degree below the record high for the date. The low will be 70. Sunrise was at 7:02. Sunset is at 7:22. Average temperatures for September 17th are a high of 85 and a low of 59. Records for the date were a high of 94 in 1990 and a record low of 44 in 2000. A year ago, the high was at 92, the low was 67. Friday's high was 92, the low was 63. On the county calendar for today, funeral service for Lonnie Williams is 2 o'clock at Dowden Roberts Funeral Home Chapel. In high school softball, again, Tishomingo is at Heavener at 1 o'clock. In high school baseball, Worcester is involved in the Rattan tournament, and Heavener Wolf Pups host Boonville at 5 p.m. In our Did You Know feature for today, at the time of its founding and through Oklahoma statehood in 1907, Heavener was located in Sugarloaf County, one of the counties making up the Moshalotubby district of the Choctaw Nation. Lonnie Ray Williams, 84 of Richard, was born February 5, 1938 in Lindsay and passed away September 14, 2022 in Richard, surrounded by his family. Funeral service is 2 p.m. today at Dowden Roberts Funeral Home Chapel with Tracy Lloyd officiating. Burial will fall in the Richard Cemetery under the direction of Dowden Roberts Funeral Home of Heavener. Graveside service for Irma Lee Monks, 88 of Grove, is 11 a.m. Thursday at the Old Pecoshi Cemetery, with Reverend Leroy Billy officiating. Services are under the direction of Evans and Miller Funeral Home. She was born December 30th, 1933 in Pecoshi and passed away September 13th in Grove. In today's top stories, a federal jury on Friday convicted a former star of the St. Louis-based reality TV show Welcome to Sweetie Pies of arranging the shooting death of his nephew. The jury deliberated about 17 hours over 3 days before reaching its verdict in the murder-for-hire case against James Tim Norman, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch reported. He was charged with conspiracy to commit murder-for-hire, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. The Biden administration announced Thursday it will send another $600 million in military aid to Ukraine as the U.S. rushes more weapons to fuel Kyiv's counteroffensive that has reclaimed large stretches of the embattled country and forced Russian troops to retreat. Tropical storm Fiona threatened to dump up to 12 inches of rain in parts of Puerto Rico Saturday as forecasters placed the U.S. territory under hurricane watch and people braced for potential landslides, severe flooding, and power outages. The storm was located 135 miles southeast of St. Croix early Saturday with maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. It was moving west at 13 miles per hour on a path forecast to pass near Puerto Rico. Forecasters warn Fiona could be near hurricane strength when it passes through Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. 3 northeastern Oklahoma high school students were killed when the vehicle they were in crashed into a tree Thursday, police said. Ethan Gibson, 17, Cyrus Sainer, 16, and Kylie Weaver, 16, died in the crash in Sand Springs. 2 16-year-olds were also in the vehicle and were hospitalized with undisclosed injuries. College football today, Oklahoma visits Nebraska. Oklahoma State hosts the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Jacksonville State is at Tulsa. On this date in history, in 1978, after a meeting at Camp David, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat signed a framework for a peace treaty. In 1787, the Constitution of the United States was completed and signed by a majority of the delegates attending the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. In 1862, more than 3,600 men were killed in the Civil War Battle of Antietam in Maryland. In 1908, Lieutenant Thomas E. Selfridge of the U.S. Army Signal Corps became the first person to die in the crash of a powered aircraft, the Wright Flyer, at Fort Myer, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. In 1820, the American Professional Football Association, a precursor of the National Football League, was formed in Canton, Ohio. In 1937, the likeness of President Abraham Lincoln's head was dedicated at Mount Rushmore. In 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Poland during World War II, more than 2 weeks after Nazi Germany had launched its assault. In 1944, during World War II, Allied paratroopers launched Operation Market Garden, landing behind German lines in the Netherlands. After initial success, the Allies were beaten back by the Germans. In 1986, the Senate confirmed the nomination of William H. Rehnquist to become the 16th Chief Justice of the United States. 2001, 6 days after 9/11, stock prices nosedived, but stopped short of collapse in an emotional, flag-waving reopening of Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the day down 684.81 points at 8,920.70. In 2011, a demonstration calling itself Occupy Wall Street began in New York, prompting similar protests around the U.S. and the world. We thank you all for joining us today and hope you have a great day and a great weekend.